Faith seeking understanding. Fides querens intellectum. Faith seeking understanding is a regular Sunday reflection which presents the social doctrine of the church in dialogue with issues and events of our contemporary world. We are living in such a complex and fast-moving world that if we are not careful, the race may not necessarily be for the swiftest and the ones who merit, but for those who understand that reality can easily become just a human creation. Students of human behavioral psychology tell us that unresolved hurts, frustrations, and angers are always seeking an outlet in order to bring normalcy to the psychological well-being of a human person. Pent-up feelings very often express themselves in regular outbursts of hate speech against imagined, suspected, or real causes. Hence, in a world where people hardly get legitimate chance to publicly and freely express their deepest feelings, social media is today providing a wider frontier for these people to use to express their feelings and against people whom they suspect or imagine are their real enemies. This is what media scholars call social media gossip. Although the 2024 American presidential elections presented a glaring study case, there have been many more instances where people use the social media to vent out their frustration, avenge their enemies, and settle scores. This way of acting is gradually gaining momentum in our society, and the church must step in as mother and teacher, mater and magistra, and this will be our talking point today in this edition of Faith Seeking Understanding. In our last edition, we examined Pope Francis's warning and caution to students in the Catholic University of Lisbon, Portugal. There is no future in a world without God. Whether we admit it or not, each of us is created by and in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, our lives have meaning only in relation to our origin and goal for which we were created. In a world where God and religion are shifted to the periphery, we can hardly expect to find integral human development. In such a world, the animal instinct in the human person is given such free range that life is reduced to a survival of the fittest. And in such a planet, there can hardly be any hope for the underprivileged and the vast majority of people. A society in which there is no God is like a huge Iroko tree growing without a taproot, a beautiful house built on sand. History and experience teach us that whenever any human civilization decided to push God and religion from the center to the peripheries, that civilization collapsed. This can be verified from the facts about human civilization stretching from the Sumerian to our Greco-Roman civilization. God created each of us out of love and for a purpose. So, no one is either an accident nor is anybody superfluous. Therefore, inasmuch as we acknowledge our divine origin and purpose, our existence will have dignity, sacredness, and meaning. But when we reject this sublime dimension of our lives suddenly become meaningless and we are left with the absurd. That is part of the reason why Pope Francis then spoke to the students in Lisbon, Portugal, outlining and pointing out to them that they should not be carried away by the glamour of the world, but to remember that there is indeed no future in a world without God. Although many of us curiously but sadly joke about very serious issues in our lives, the truth is that what the Holy Father said will probably have concern and be a concern for many of us when we realize in our lead days of our lives that we have spent our useful time chasing the wind. The unexamined life is not worth living, and each of us needs to take that seriously, to look into our inner self and see what we are doing with our lives, because there is indeed no future in a world without God. God is love, and all who love live in God, and God lives in them. But anyone who does not love can never have known God. And this is what St. John tells us, that each and every one of us must learn to love if truly we want to live with God. Those who do not love can never have known God. God intended, and we must all follow suit, moving towards the creation of a civilization of love. According to St. Paul, one of the basic characteristics of love is that love is patient, never easily angered, does not keep a score of wrongs, nor seek vengeance. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in good and speaks the truth with love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 5 to 8. Unfortunately, what we are observing today is the contrary, where people use the social media in particular to seek public attention, vent out their pent-up feelings, and deliberately spill out half-truths in order to destroy their perceived and suspected enemies. This is worrisome in a world where we all want to know truth and to protect the truth. This is, in fact, a caricature of justice and peace, love and harmony. We need to bring out those elements that will help the human being to grow better. And this will be our concern today. So don't go away. I am your host, Father Tatah Mbuy, and this is Faith Seeking Understanding. Welcome. This is Faith Seeking Understanding, our regular Sunday program and reflection, an English translation from the original Latin Fides Quaerens Intellectum, the title of a philosophical treatise written by the medieval English scholar St. Anselm of Canterbury, Bishop, Confessor, Doctor of the Church, the Doctor Magnificus, the Magnificent Doctor. Anselm wrote Faith Seeking Understanding, Fides Quaerens Intellectum, to bring clarification to pertinent issues of his day. In imitation of the saintly scholar, Faith Seeking Understanding, this program has the mission to clarify issues which challenge faith in our modern world. Today, the issue at stake is a social media, which has become a major platform for spilling and helping people to spill over their pent-up feelings, hate speech, and promote gossip. In 2008, the Spanish communication theorist Manuel Castells published a modern communication classic called Communication Power, in which, among other things, Manuel points out that we live in a world in which communication is so prevalent that it influences, sometimes even determines, the way people think, talk, and act. It is a digital world where the power game is now played more in cyberspace than in actual interpersonal communication and interaction. Many people are connected to others through various network groups and chat rooms. Hence, there is a great power today in the network society. That is why social media has become such a great platform through which a good number of people reach out to others. It has equally provided an avenue for pent-up feelings, hate speech, and anger, or what we technically would call gossip. It is a digital world where people now can say things which they would never say directly to others because they think that it is easier in social media to speak out without being noticed, or to say what we would normally, not probably, say with the same ease and the same venom. Someone who is having pent-up feelings may appear calm and collected, but they have repressed emotions or stifled feelings that eventually need to be released. At one time or other in our lives, we experience situations which make us angry, frustrated, or embittered. When these feelings do not find an outlet, we move around almost like a stray bullet, ready to cause casualty anywhere and everywhere. People who do not accept their feelings and their frustration or deal with them may leave and look for exits in other people whom they can target for destruction. That is why today a good number of people who have had frustrations and disappointments in their lives either directly use the social media to vent out anger against all kinds of people who they imagine or believe have been the cause of their situation. Others who are too shy to come to the open use foolhardy men and women who are ready to spill the bean on the social media, often without respect either for the deontology of online publication or ethical consideration of the usage of the internet. With the arrival of the internet in general and social media in particular, citizen journalism has become so popular that anyone and everyone imagines that because they have a smartphone or are linked to a network of groups of people, anything and everything can be published online. This is how hate speech and fake news have become monnaie courante. Hate speech is any offensive discourse targeting individuals or a group for the sake either of hurting them or downrightly with the hope of destroying their reputation. Often, such hate speech betray more of the frustration and anger of the writer than those targeted. Hate speech is a communication anomaly, a civil crime, and a threat to social justice and peace. Often, the real intention is to defame the reputation of someone, a group, or an institution. Many psychologists believe that those who often are engaged in hate speech have an axe to grind and use social media as a platform where people who are uncritical can easily be deceived. Hate speech is often a one-sided expression of anger by the protagonist that it betrays prejudice, avoids to check out facts from those concerned, and commits the most uncharitable fallacy ad hominem, where individuals rather than issues are tackled. The anger that can easily be deciphered is born of pent-up feelings. So there is a link between one who has pent-up feelings and one who promotes and uses hate speech. These two lead to a third and more sinister internet phenomenon today referred to as fake news. Since the 2016 American election, fake news has so taken the media hostage that through it, public opinion is easily influenced and people are misled into believing what they should not believe and believing falsehood and things which later on they discover were not completely true. Cyberspace may be a great advantage to the digital world today, but it is space defined not by physical dimensions but by the exchange of information and ideas. It is a conceptual framework deliberately created to influence personal and public opinion. Cyberspace can be used for doing things which we would otherwise not do. It is an environment where the only limits are the extent of our creativity and the reach of technology. Modern man believes that anyone can create his own reality, live in it, and persuade others into this arena. Hence, pseudo-facts, half-truths, and even truths are spoken in such a way that the real intention of the fake news of people to tilt public opinion the way the protagonists want is achieved. That is the reason why fake news on social media builds and thrives on the natural human capacity to construct his own reality and to get others to believe in it. We have witnessed millions of people carried over by repeated lies, conspiracy theories, and slanted truth. Specialists in fake news can speak out the truth, but they so spin it that it ends up fulfilling their real wish. And their interest is not usually the truth as truth, but they use the truth as a way in order to either sly or to wound their intended enemy or people whom they have an axe to grind with. It may appear like the truth, but people with uncritical mind do not easily decipher what is actually behind this so-called truth. Communication specialists are fully aware of various ways in which the media can be used to spin the truth, to set the agenda, and thereby to influence public opinion in the intended manner. Fake news gives the impression of being very concerned. It appeals to emotions and sometimes instills such fear that people end up believing what they should not believe. In fact, since the strange phenomenon of fake news began in Veles, Macedonia in 2016, it has influenced practically all social media outlets. Fake news today presents itself as correct and gives very little time for people to fact check because it drops names like conmen do, gives every appearance of being scientific, and uses some well-known facts that people do not realize there is more than catches the eye. A more nefarious phenomenon is gradually gaining space on various social media platforms. Communication scholars refer to it as social media gossip, a new frontier where information can easily become rumor rather than fact, or where facts can be used to amplify harmful narratives. Scholars of communication science define gossip as small or cheap talk about others that has curious, scandalous, sometimes humorous, but with a definite intention to run down or defame another. Since the mid-20th century, there are magazines, radios, and television stations who specialize in gossip, especially concerned about the private and personal lives of important personalities and institutions in our society. These media outlets are used by opponents of the establishment to spill out all dirt, and they can find with the hope that the public will be swayed their way. That is why a good number of those who gossip on social media are usually con men and con women who drop names of authoritative people here and there, link themselves with stars and important personalities in society, and quote so profusely that readers need to read between the lines to see the real intention of these gossipers. People are using others to gossip on social media and publish both junk and hate speech online. Every discipline has its own deontology and its own ethic, including online publication. It has the way in which people must act. Journalism is not for everybody. Not everything and anything is allowed to be published for public consumption, even if it is true. There are rules which must govern us all. Ethics in communication in general calls for professionalism, scientific investigation, transparency, respect for the privacy of others, and love for the manner in which we report the truth. That is why, on the 2nd of June 2000, the then Pontifical Council for Communication published a document on, quote, ethics in communication, appealing to all men and women who use various outlets of communication to realize that we are moral beings and bound by charity to publish only issues that will engender love, peace, and harmony among human beings. Hatred and anger do quite the opposite. Therefore, even if we have the truth about issues and about others, basic human dignity and civility demand that we respect the public reputation of others, even if these are our arch enemies. 2 years after Ethics in Communication was published, the same Pontifical Council for Communication realized that the internet was fast becoming the interface for human interaction. So, on the 22nd of February 2002, it published another important document on ethics in internet. The broad span and wide extent of the internet should make all users of the internet recognize that much as we can reach out to millions of people in one go, these people deserve to be fed with more refined and well thought out information. There is already far too much evil in our world. Gossip over the social media does not help to build a more loving society, which should be the aim of every responsible person. It is true that people who are hurting try to find out ways by which they can attack their enemies or those who have hurt them. It is true that many people who are unable to find the way to meet these people often use sometimes unorthodox means and the social media to write out what they would have loved to tell the people in person. But we must realize that communication scholars understand that publication is always and almost essentially to bring information. And when this becomes almost negative, it is neither to be taken seriously nor to be considered as communication in the true sense of the word. Communication today is no longer a one-directional sender-receiver exercise, but a ritual into which we invite others to participate in meaningful dialogue and chatting. Communication is understood today as an ongoing conversation among human beings who, even when they disagree, must do so while respecting the deontology and the ethics of the profession of communication in general and journalism in particular. Therefore, no one is allowed to use either communication outlets or social media networks to breed and promote hatred, anger, and express pent-up feelings. The Church recognizes the right of individuals to seek the truth and to acquire that truth, but truth must be objective, balanced, and charitable. Truth that is used to destroy good human relationships. Truth that is purposefully meant to hurt and tarnish the image of others is definitely not the truth that deserves and receives divine blessings. Politicians and demagogues are often quick to fish out the wrongs, scandals, and bad behaviors of their purported enemies, that they publish these as facts with the hope that they can diminish others and improve their own rating. But often the opposite happens, as we saw during the American elections. Our world is sick of listening to all the bad things that others have done. People are more eager to hear how we can improve our interaction and move on with our lives. The name of God is mercy, and there is the reason why he does not judge us according to our faults, because if God did, none of us would survive. Psalm 130 verse 3. That is the reason why the Synod of Synodality that ended its second phase in the Vatican on the 27th of October 2024 told us that the Church should now try to overcome the temptation of being a tribunal ready to judge and sanction wrongdoers. Rather, she should be more and more the field hospital out onto the battleground looking for the wounded to heal. This shift in paradigm comes because all of us are sinners and fall short of the glory of God. Romans chapter 3, verse 33. God is love, and he who loves each of us unconditionally, that God readily overlooks all our iniquities. Studies in communications show that the more scandals are published on social media, the worse our society becomes. Much as these media gossips attract and sometimes influence public opinion, in the end, gossips and publications of scandals on media does quite the opposite to our society. That is why sensational journalism and those who seek to attract by publishing gossip online end up more despised than those who committed the crimes. A very recent example involves the numerous scandals that were published about President-elect Donald Trump. Far from diminishing the candidate, the rating of the former president increased and finally got him bouncing back to the White House. This does not mean that he was right to do what he did and was accused of, or that he was right to use the kind of language that he was using. No, our society and our contemporary audience is sick of gossip and scandal mongering. People are looking for how to improve their lives and what to do to survive in a highly competitive and economically challenging world. Beloved brothers and sisters, communication technology has been a wonderful gift to humanity. Pope John Paul II referred to modern media as the new Areopagus, which can be used for the quick and effective evangelization and second evangelization of our world. At the same time, the Holy Father was quick to point out that the same media can become new frontiers for promoting hatred, violence, and evil. Since Pope St. Paul VI introduced the World Communication Day on the 7th of May 1967, each year the popes have always reminded us about the wonderful gift that communication is to our world today. But they have also been firm in admonishing us to remember the ethical demands of communication. Since the introduction of the internet in the 80s, the popes have also been very insistent on reminding us that the internet can do as much good as it can invite evil into human societies. Therefore, much as we are happy to exploit and use the advantages that the social media and digitality brings, we need to be cautious of the irretrievable damage that these can bring. Many people are using the internet for all kinds of research and wonderful exploration of the truth. These are to be encouraged. But those who use the same tools to fan hatred, anger, and to vent their pent-up feelings demand more sympathy and need assistance to become better human beings in order that they use these technologies for the good of humanity. That is why media scholars are united in pointing out that gossip over social media or using the media to spurn all kinds of scandals about individuals and institutions is becoming obsolete, irrelevant, and a challenge to human interaction in a world where people want to have the right to more useful information. In fact, the growing usage of social media for fake news, downright lying, expression of pent-up feelings, hate speech, and gossip has promoted the International Association of Social Media Professionals, IASMP, to establish a set of 10 principles which should hitherto help users to behave more responsibly and respectfully on social media platforms. These principles are: the first, respect for the dignity and sacredness of the human person by treating others, even criminals, with kindness and avoiding offensive content online. Second, truthfulness, which avoids misinformation and disinformation, fake news, and manipulation of facts for personal interests. Third, privacy, which seeks to protect personal information, and the reputation of others. Fourth, accountability, which holds those who act a contrario responsible for the content they produce and the reactions that these trigger off. Fifth, fairness, which seeks to give facts from both sides of the story. Sixth, civility, learning to handle conflict and disagreement with the spirit of a gentleman and lady and avoiding hate language and hate speech. Seventh, data privacy and security, learning to handle conflict and not to expose private information about individuals and institutions, especially sensitive information. Eighth, avoiding gossip mongering and negativity online, not feeding people with negatives and evil. Ninth, verification of facts before publication online, making sure that the story we have heard or been told is the right one, also from those who are accused. And 10th, transparency, which does not hide the real motives of those who publish online. What is their intention in publishing what they publish? A violation of these 10 principles is considered today by social media experts as a crime for which those guilty stand accountable even before the court of law. Unfortunately, we live in a society where law enforcement officers even do not seem to know what cyber criminality is all about. Hence, instead of arresting, for example, scammers who are growing in their numbers in our society, for example, these law enforcement officers are there standing and admiring the young people who have money and who can share stolen money with them, because that is what scamming is all about. It is stealing money from others. Beloved brothers and sisters, if we are not very careful with social media, what was originally meant to be of help to the world could become the source of destruction in our society and to our society. Each and every one of us is therefore called to sit back and look at the way in which we use social media. Let us pray. Merciful and loving Father, you have created and loved each of us unconditionally. Give us the charity and wisdom to treat each other with respect and fairness. May we use social media for the integral development of the human person. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. This has been Faith Seeking Understanding. Until next Sunday, I have been your host, Father Tatah. Let us learn to use social media in a responsible manner. Mbuy.